So Pain and Gain is the story of Daniel Lugo. I am Daniel Lugo, and I believe in fitness, says Mark Wahlberg, our lead. Based on a true story, Pain and Gain was made in 2013 by kind of a frustrated Michael Bay. It's interesting. He had made 3 Transformers movies at this point. Transformers 1, 2, and 3. I can't remember their surnames. And he'd wanted to make this script since the year 2000 when he read it, the script for Pain and Gain. He did it on a $20 million budget, micro budget compared to his Transformers movies. In fact, that's small for most of his filmography. And he wanted to just step back and say, okay, I don't want to do the big CGI robots for a movie. I just want to do something small and unique and a bit of a comedy and a bit of a drama and a bit of a thriller with Mark Wahlberg, Dwayne Johnson, and a very early Anthony Mackie, who hadn't even gotten into the Marvel Universe yet, where you'll see him now as the Falcon, a.k.a. our Captain America. Pain and Gain is a based on true story crime heist thriller, starring, of course, our 3 leads as a group of bodybuilders in Florida in 1994 who all become the Sun Gym Gang for Sun Gym, the gym they all go to and work out at, when one of them decides to kidnap a client, a wealthy client, and have all of his assets signed over to them, the bodybuilders, and then let him go. And it'll totally work and be a great scheme. It's harebrained for sure, and it's a little goofy. Right up until it all goes horribly wrong. I'm so excited to talk about this movie. The first time I saw it was just after college. I had a lot of people tell me it's big, like Harmony Korine's Spring Breakers, or like we would later see with Martin Scorsese's Wolf of Wall Street, right? Like big, excess, brash, surreal. You'll love it. I'm excited to talk about it here on the show. Andy, this is your first time seeing it. What did you think of Pain and Gain?
There's nothing more that I love than a criminal enterprise done by idiots, like a harebrained scheme that's destined to fail, but they kind of go through it. And that's what we get. It's a very fun movie because we have these 3 meatheads trying to be criminal masterminds, failing through the majority of it, but somehow kind of succeeding for a little while before things eventually get out of control and unravel, and like these things normally do. It's fun to see Michael Bay bring his Michael Bay isms to a smaller film. This is essentially a true crime movie comedy, and to have those big kind of Michael Bay sweet, the rotating shot, the looking up the different the little bit of action that is in here, to have that done on a smaller scale. It's an interesting project for sure.
Yeah, Bay, like I said, wanted to do something that was away from Transformers, but he wanted to bring his signature style that he picked up working in music videos way back in the day. That's what started his whole career. It's what got him going on Bad Boys. And you get that DNA here for sure. Pain and Gain is shot like any other hyper-saturated, huge lens flare, big muscles like sweating in the sun Michael Bay movie. Big explosions, slow-mo when the cops come screaming out of the SWAT car. Like everything about it is supposed to look as cool as possible. And it's a perfect fit for a movie about American excess, especially in 1994, right? Like The Rock is blowing lines and like our guys are getting a pump on in the middle of a murder, and there's like all kinds of insane things happening, all in the effort to say that this is a story about just how far people can go with the American dream and what exactly that means, right? Is it to work hard and make something for yourself, or is it to take what you want, you know? Pain and Gain, the title is derived from No Pain, No Gain, which I hear is an old Ben Franklin quote, but has been obviously attributed to bodybuilding in the past, lifting weights, and that extends to our cast, who are looking great in this movie. Mark Wahlberg put on like 40 pounds of muscle in 7 weeks after he signed this film. Dwayne Johnson clocks in at, I think, 300 pounds, which is less than I think he is now. I think he looks small in this movie, which is bananas because he's so tall. They had to cut the roof off of Mark Wahlberg's Ferrari in this flick, like to get him to fit in it. You can see his head sticking out the top in a bunch of the scenes. And Anthony Mackie, who had like 3 weeks to train when he signed this movie, so he did not manage to get nearly as jacked, but it works out. Our guys joke about steroids, lots of drugs and protein shakes, lots of drinking and excess, strippers, bodybuilders. Like, all of this is present in the playground that is Pain and Gain, a movie that, again, is kind of a dark crime thriller. Very charmed by his view on what would otherwise be like a pretty dark script.
Yeah, this is it reminds me a little bit of Wolf of Wall Street, actually, because and it's around that same time, because it is about kind of these people wanting this life of excess. They want to be exorbitantly rich, and the only way they know to kind of get there is through illegitimate means. And what's hilarious is their whole plan is to kidnap this person, make them sign over their assets, and then murder that person or do away with them. And all of that goes wrong. The kidnapping, it takes them multiple attempts to kidnap the guy. It takes them over a month to break him enough to sign. Like they were hoping it would be, they'd have him for a day or two. He'd sign over everything. They got to hang on to him for a month. They kind of lose track of him. They don't actually successfully kill him, so they got to kind of just run away, and they got to put lies upon lies upon lies to kind of make their scheme work. And it does work for a little bit, but then they kind of get to a point where they need to pull off a second job, and everything starts to unravel.
Wall Street, I think, is a really great comparison. I also love that movie. No coincidence. I mean, Wall Street came out in 2014. This is 2013. So like these were nearly shooting at the same time. Like it's cool to see Scorsese's take on like American excess versus like Michael Bay's, right? Scorsese's a bit more pulled back, a bit more thoughtful. You become sympathetic with your characters, but like Daniel Lugo and friends here are not particularly likable. Like from the top, I don't think you're supposed to like these guys, right? And they're funny, especially Dwayne Johnson, who is, to me, surprisingly refreshing to see him play against the type that he's developed in the last decade since this movie came out, right? Like now he's much more big, brash. He's funny, but he's not pulling anything wild like John Cena or Dave Bautista might pull. But like this movie, this was wild for him. This was something he doesn't normally do. Like background character, everything goes wrong. And Matt, go ahead.
He would never not be the main character. If they were to make this today, he would be Daniel Lugo. Like
right, and Mackie like feels totally in place because of how we've seen him in his work in the Marvel universe now. But like his name wasn't even on the poster. Like he was an afterthought. Like in the cast of this movie, they barely signed him before they started. They were gonna get somebody else. Like. And it's funny watching it now because he feels like he fits. And it's like, oh, yeah, it's Anthony Mackie. Yeah, I love him. But, like, at the time, total stray. Like, he does a great job. The only one that I think that's really weird is our kind of first kidnapping victim. He's played by Tony Shalhoub from Monk. And it's brutal, man, because the IMDb trivia says for the longest time they had John Turturro signed to do it, and he would have been so much better. Shalhoub's fine. He's fine. He's definitely not likable. You don't like the guy. But once you get to our private detective, Ed Harris, who's a very nice surprise to see coming out of Michael Bay's The Rock, right, 1995, Ed Harris shows up and kind of figures out how to maybe dish out some justice on these clowns in a very satisfying fashion.
Yeah, it's a shame that John Turturro didn't get the role of that character, because it would have been hilarious. But the cast still works. Also, an appearance by Rebel Wilson as she's a medical person that Anthony Mackie's character has to see because of some negative steroid side effects. They strike up this romance, which eventually plays into the larger plot of the film, because they do kind of get away with this crime for a little bit, and they inherit this guy's house and his money and his businesses, and they're kind of living large for a little bit.
I think I'm so impressed at like the Michael Bay isms of this movie. I know we kind of already talked about them. Just to wrap up my thoughts, like Andy's right. It looks like a Michael Bay film in every single sense of like almost every shot you could look at and be like, is that a Michael Bay movie? You'll see gags right out of Bad Boys, like in Bad Boys 2. A lot of the camera rotating gags, the camera rotates around your action. It even does that segment from Bad Boys 2 where the camera rotates around our two cops backdrops like on a fireplace and it's like panning through walls. It does the same gag in a scene in this movie when like Mark Wahlberg's arguing with one character and Dwayne Johnson's arguing with another, and Anthony Mackie's dancing with the stripper at the same time in the background. Like goofy, wild, off the wall, and such a refreshing movie on a small budget from a big director. This is the kind of thing, like, I love when directors do this. Like, I loved when Joel Cohen pulled back and did the tragedy Macbeth, right, on like a micro budget. I liked when Sam Levinson made Malcolm and Marie on Netflix, like black and white pandemic movie. Like, I think it's cool when Steven Soderbergh makes something like Kimmy, right, like a smaller feature made during the pandemic. Like, I think directors challenging themselves with a smaller budget on purpose is a great exercise, and it clearly juiced Bay to make 2 more Transformers movies, which is nuts. We got 5 of those, and Ninja Turtles the year after this, and because of that, like, I think Pain and Gain has a really unique place in his filmography, right? Because it's not a franchise film, and it's not a sequel to a movie he already made. It's uniquely its own thing. Like it's one of his few like based on a true story films. It is a very small budget. And it comes off like being something really bright and flashy. And I think it's a shame that it didn't get its due back then. I think it's cool that people now seem to come around on it, at least a little. I hope Andy did anyway. We'll find out when we get to recommendations. But Andy, any other thoughts before recommendations?
I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend Michael Bay's 2013 seminal masterpiece, Pain and Gain?
Yeah, I would. Like I said, I would maybe say save it for streaming if it were out now. But it's a lot of fun. And it's, again, you're seeing someone known for big action who's got these storied franchises, Transformers or his action films of the 90s. And you see him take all that same kind of approach to a smaller a crime film, a heist film with a bunch of idiots. And it's really interesting to see. And it's a lot of fun. It's a funny movie. Really interesting. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think Pain and Gain's great, and everybody should watch it. It's totally not for everybody. It's a hard R. Another unique standout in Michael Bay's filmography. Doesn't always pull that off. This one's got it. Nudity, drugs, murder, crime, gore. It's all here. Like I said, it's a very exciting like flashbang of a movie. I think it's totally worth watching if you're interested. I'm glad we covered it on the show. It's available on Paramount Plus. If you have it, I don't know if you need the Showtime package, but if you have the means, go check out Pain and Gain. Perfect film for the summer, right? Stay in, get yourself an ice water or like your favorite cocktail and enjoy Pain and Gain at your own leisure. And with that, I think we're done with episode 223 of Off Script. God, Andy, we got a lot of episodes of this show. What are we watching next? Dude, I know, yeah. What are we watching next week?
So we're gonna be taking next week off. There's no big releases. The large release is the Last Voyage of the Demeter, which is a kind of Dracula adjacent story. We're gonna be skipping that one, but that is out this Friday. We will be back on the 22nd with Blue Beetle, the final, no, and not quite, almost final movie in the old DC canon of films. I'm kind of looking forward to that. We'll see how it is. It looks like a good time. We're also going to be checking out the Old Boy re-release. This is just some FYI. If you're a fan of the 2003 classic from Park Chan-wook, that comes out playing the 16th through the 24th, I believe. So catch that if you're interested. This big re-release.